Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of majority.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 10th May 2022. Report of the Standing Committee on Education and Inquiry into the Early Childhood Development Education ECDE landscape in the country. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, the 10th May 2022. 1, the Minister of Defense Annual Performance Report for the financial year 2020-2021. And 2, the Public Finance Management, Public Investment Management Regulations of 2022, Legal Notice number 54 of 2022. And I thank you.
Okay, Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Speaker. I wish to lay the report of the committee, of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on the Controller of Budget Regulations 2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements.
Senator Shionga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to read the statement relating to the activities of the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration, pursuant to Standing Order 51B. The period commencing 1st January to 31st March 2022. Honorable Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 51(1)B to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration for the period commencing 1st January 2022 to 31st March 2022. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the committee held a total of 8 sittings, wherein it considered several legislative business agendas before it, among them, statement and petition. In the statement, Honorable Speaker, the committee concluded on the statement sought by Senator Petronila Lokorio Were, MP, on the recruitment made by the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public in 2013 to date, following consideration of submissions received from the ministry. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to petition, the committee considered the Migori residents' petition regarding continuous exclusion of persons with disabilities, VWDs, in Migori County budget, and the committee met the petitioners and undertook a visit to Migori County and led the county government officials and county assembly committee met the county government officials and the county assembly committee in charge of the matters of budget and finance. The committee made recommendations addressing the petitioner's prayer The petition report is ready and awaiting tabling in the Senate. Honorable Speaker, the committee undertook a county visit to Busia County and inspection visit to Busia and Malaba one-stop porter post, OSPP, during the OSPP. During the visit, the committee engaged the Busia County government on the issues of inclusivity and diversity. Mr. Speaker, one of the key observations made by the committee at the Malaba one-stop porter post was that the OSPP has significant revenue flows for the country and is also the busiest inland entry point on the northern corridor, handling over 80% of the cargo destined to East Africa countries. The committee was, however, concerned that despite its huge importance, the OSPP remains incomplete with signs of poor workmanship and lacks major infrastructure facilities leading to inefficiency. Mr. Speaker, the committee also undertook a report writing and work planning retreat from Wednesday 16th to Saturday 19th March 2022 to consider and adopt the program of activities for the period between 21st March to 17th June 2022. B, to adopt the Emigori County residents petition regarding continuous exclusion of persons with disabilities in Emigori County budget and County Integrated Development Plan. And C, consider and adopt the committee report on the inspection visit to the one-stop porter post in Busia and Malaba. Honorable Speaker, the committee in its work plan intends to carry out the following key activities during the next quarter. D, meet with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission and Ministry of Interior and National Coordination and other relevant stakeholders on preparedness of the upcoming general election. E, meet with the relevant stakeholders on issues of promoting peace and cohesion in conflict zones such as in Marsabit, Isiolo, Wajir, West Pokot, Turkana, Mandera, among others. F, engage the Council of Governors and the National Council for Persons with Disabilities on matter of equal opportunity and inclusivity. G, undertake active county visit to regions affected by conflicts that were banned due to COVID-19 pandemic. One-stop porter post and to county governments on matters of inclusivity, and promote regional integration by considering reports from the Pan-African Parliament and East Africa Community organs. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson, National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration.
Okay. The other statements, the Chair Standing Committee on Energy. Remember, it's deferred. Chair delegated.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 51, 1B of the Senate Standing Orders to make a statement relating to the activities of the Senate Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation during the 6th session of the 12th Parliament from January to April 2022. Honorable Speaker, the Senate Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation is established under Standing Order number 221 of the Senate Standing Orders. The committee is mandated to scrutinize statutory instruments laid before the Senate to ensure that they are consistent with the provision of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013. The committee considers whether the Statutory Instrument 1 is in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, the Act pursuant to which it is made, or any other relevant law. Number 2, whether it infringes on the fundamental rights and freedoms of the public. Number 3, it contains a matter which, in the opinion of the committee, should more properly be dealt with in an act of parliament. Number 4, contains an imposition on taxation. Number 5, directly or indirectly bars the jurisdiction of the court. Number 6, gives retrospective effect to any of the provisions in respect to which the Constitution does not expressly give any such power. Number 7, it involves expenditure from the consolidated fund or other public revenues. Number 8, appears to make some unusual or unexpected use of the powers conferred by the Constitution or the Act pursuant to which it is made. Number 9, inappropriately delegates legislative powers. Number 10, imposes a fine, imprisonment, or other penalty which, without express authority, having been provided for in the enabling legislation. Number 11, inadequately subjects the exercise of legislative power to parliamentary scrutiny. And 12, accords to any other reason that the committee considers fit to examine. Mr. Speaker, membership of the committee, the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation is comprised of the following members: Senator Mohamed Faki Munyahaji, MP, Chairperson; Senator Agnes Kavindu Mudhama, MP, Vice Chairperson; Senator Samuel Pogisho, EGH, MP; the Majority Leader, Member, Senator Faria Ali Haji, MP; and the Majority Deputy Whip, Senator Judith Pareno, MP; Senator Professor Samson Ongeri, EGH, MP; Senator Abshiro Halake, MP; Senator Mary Senator, MP; and Senator Anwar Loitip-Tip, MP. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the committee held 24 sittings, during which it considered 8 parliamentary statutory instruments and 1 benchmarking visit by the County Assembly of Samburu on delegated legislation. Honorable Speaker, during the period under review, the committee undertook consideration of the following statutory instruments. Number 1, consideration of the Beast Milk Substitutes Regulations and Control General Regulations 2021. 2, consideration of the Irrigation General Regulations 2021. 3, consideration of the designation of basins, areas, legal notice number 235 of 2021. Number 4, Controller of Budget Regulations 2021. Number 5, reconsideration of the Traffic Driving Schools, Driving Instructors and Driving Licenses Rules 2020, tabled in the Senate on the 15th of February 2022. Number 6, pre-publication scrutiny of the draft National Billing Code 2022. Number 7, pre-publication scrutiny of the draft regulations developed subsequent to the assent and commencement of the National Health Insurance Fund Amendment Act number 1 of 2022. Number 8, pre-publication scrutiny of the draft Intergovernmental Relations General Regulations 2022. Number 9, benchmarking visit by the County Assembly of Samburu, Select Committee on Delegated Legislation. Honorable Speaker, the following regulations were submitted to the Senate by Cabinet Secretaries pursuant to Section 11 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and subsequently committed to our committee. 1, the Breast Milk Substitutes Regulation and Control General Regulations 2021. Honorable Speaker, the Breast Milk Substitutes Regulation and Control General Regulations 2021 were tabled in the Senate on the 5th of October 2021 and committed to the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for scrutiny. The committee thereafter held a consultative retreat from 2nd May to 2nd February to the 5th of February to meet stakeholders and deliberate on the regulations. Pursuant to Section 12(1) of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, at its sitting held on the 5th February 2022, the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation considered the Breast Milk Substitutes Regulation and Control General Regulations 2021, and further pursuant to Standing Order number 2214A of the Senate Standing Orders, the committee resolved that the regulations be acceded to. Number 2, the Irrigation General Regulations 2021. Honorable Speaker, the Irrigation General Regulations 2021 were tabled in the Senate on the 2nd of November 2021 and committed to the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for scrutiny. The committee thereafter held consultative retreat from the 2nd to 5th of February 2022 to meet with stakeholders and to deliberate on the regulations. Pursuant to Section 12(1) of the Statutory Instruments Act, and at its sitting held on the 21st of February 2022, the Central Committee on Delegated Legislation considered the Irrigation General Regulations 2021 and further pursuant to Standing Order number 2214A of the Senate Standing Orders, the committee resolved that regulations be acceded to. Number 3, the designation of basin areas, legal notice number 235 of 2021. Honorable Speaker, the designation of basin areas, legal notice number 235 of 2021 was tabled in the Senate on the 9th of February 2022 and committed to the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for scrutiny. The committee thereafter held consultative engagements with stakeholders on the same on 18th of March and 19th of April 2022. Pursuant to Section 12(1) of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and at its sitting held on the 19th of April 2022, the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation considered the designation of basin areas, legal notice number 235 of 2021, and further pursuant to Standing Order number 2214A of the Senate Standing Orders, the committee resolved that the designation of basin areas, legal notice number 235 of 2021, be acceded to. Reconsideration of the Traffic Driving Schools, Driving Instructors and Driving Licenses Rules 2020, tabled in the Senate on 15th of February. The Traffic Driving Schools, Driving Instructors and Driving Licenses Rules 2020 were tabled in the Senate on the 15th of February 2022 and committed to the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for reconsideration. At its sitting held on 28th of February 2022, the committee resolved to have a consultative workshop to meet with stakeholders to deliberate on the regulation. The matter is still before the committee. Number 5, the Controller of Budget Regulations 2021. Honorable Speaker, the Controller of Budget Regulations 2021 were published by the Controller of Budget on the 3rd of December 2021, pursuant to Section 25 of the Controller of Budget Act. The regulations were tabled before the Senate by the Senior Senate Deputy Majority Leader on the 9th of February 2022 and subsequently committed to the Senate Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation pursuant to Section 15(2) of the Statutory Instruments Act. The committee is required to scrutinize the regulations. The Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation considered the regulations and received submissions from the National Treasury, the Central Bank of Kenya, the County Assemblies Forum, the Council of Governors, the Office of the Auditor General, the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, IGTRC, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, some of the key observations of the Committee on the Control of Budget Regulations 2021 are as follows. There has been a challenge with regards to the payment of pending bills. The regulations provide that an up-to-date schedule of pending bills and payment plan be provided during approval request, Regulation 8(2)(c)(3) of the said regulation. This will enable the Control of Budget in tracking the payment of pending bills. However, the relevant laws need to be amended to ensure that correct pending bills are paid as per the approved requisition. Regulation number 22(3) on submission of quarterly reports to the controller by the 15th day of each quarter contradicts Section 83(3) and 5 of the PFM Act 2012, which requires ministry and departments and agencies to submit to the National Treasury and a copy to the Controller of Budget the quarterly report on the 15th day at the end of every quarter, and the National Treasury submit consolidated quarterly report to Parliament and a copy of the Controller of Budget by 45th day after the end of each quarter. The penalties contained in the regulation are not sufficient to deter non-compliance, and D, the regulations are in line with Article 2521A of the Constitution, which provides that an independent office holder may conduct investigation on its own initiative or on a complaint made by a member of the public. However, the investigation should be restricted to the functions of the Controller of Budget as per the Act. Honorable Speaker, after consideration of the Controller of Budget Regulations 2021, pursuant to Section 15(1) of the Statutory Instruments Act, and Standing Order number 2214B, The Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation recommends that the Senate resolve that the Control of Budget Regulations 2021 be annulled. Conclusion, Honorable Speaker, allow me to commend the committee members for their dedication in discharging the committee's mandate. Honorable Speaker, despite the Senator's busy schedule, my committee has not experienced any quorum hitches. I also want to thank your office and the office of the Clerk of the Senate for the support accorded to the committee in undertaking its work. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Now, using my discretion, understanding order number 1, I allow the Chair of Finance to table Kara report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just tabling on behalf of the Chair of Finance. Honorable Speaker, I wish to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. The report on the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, the county allocation of revenue, Senate Bills number 1 of 2022. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, next order. Okay, Honorable Senators, for the convenience of the House, I want to rearrange the order papers so that we move from order number 8 to order number 25. Clerk.
Order number 25, the Sustainable Waste Management Bill, National Assembly Bills number 22 of 2021, second reading.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Sustainable Waste Management Bill 2021, National Assembly Bills of number 22 of 2021, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, waste is a resource that can be managed to achieve economic and social environmental benefits. Kenya's current waste disposal system is fraught with many problems. These problems range from the city's failures to prioritize solid waste management to inadequate infrastructure. Several strategies have been tried and have been put in place to address this issue of waste management, but have not been very successful. Mr. Speaker, to address this problem, however, a lot of the efforts put in have not been enough because there have been no institutional changes that have been made. And so this proposed amendment, Mr. Speaker, this proposed sustainable waste management bill, Mr. Speaker, is attempting to correct some of these problems and to cure some of the issues that have been plaguing this whole area of waste management. Mr. Speaker, this bill from the National Assembly was published on May the 12th, 2021, was passed in the National Assembly and referred to the Senate on February 23rd, 2022. The bill, in essence, Mr. Speaker, seeks to establish the legal and the institutional framework for the sustainable management of waste and to ensure the realization of the constitutional provision on the right to a clean and healthy environment and population. Speaker, in trying to address the waste management challenge effectively in Kenya, it is critical to this bill is critical to delivering on the Kenya's constitutional rights to a clean and healthy environment for all, advancing the circular this economy to create green jobs and wealth from the waste sector, and advancing the nation's sustainable development goals. Mr. Speaker, sustainable waste management is also fundamental to the delivery of each of the government's big four national priorities. The transformational agenda on housing, manufacturing, food and nutrition, security and healthcare all have something to do with the management of waste or for a clean environment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's leadership in the blue economy, again, is very important, Mr. Speaker, for the environment and for waste management, either on land, on sea, or in our urban environment. Mr. Speaker, the whole idea of an ecosystem called the sustainable waste management is supposed to be a priority in this country, should be given impetus, new impetus, Mr. Speaker, so that we can begin to do what other parts of the world have done, Mr. Speaker. You will hear, Mr. Speaker, that people have made money. Countries have made money from carbon credit. Countries have made money from recycling, Mr. Speaker. And people have become extremely rich in recycling. And so this is typically, Mr. Speaker, to establish, therefore, a institutional framework and to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that we ourselves adhere to what is in our Constitution as a matter of clean environment and therefore providing a sustainable waste management system in the country. The Speaker, this bill is therefore arranged to allow for us to debate it and for us to pass it. It's arranged in these parts, Mr. Speaker, and part 1 of the bill, which is the closest 1 to 4, provides for the preliminary matters, including and not limited to the short title of the bill, the definitions of the key terms used in the bill, and the objectives and general principles of the bill. Part B, or Part 2 of the bill, Speaker, which is clauses 5 to 9, provide for policy, coordination, and oversight of waste management, defines the role of the Cabinet Secretary, provides for the establishment of the Waste Management Council and its functions. It also spells out the functions of the National Environmental Management Authority in terms of waste management and provides for the functions of county governments. The Speaker, Part 3 of the bill, clauses 10 to 14, provides for the measures and actions, including the role of the Cabinet Secretary and county governments regarding policies, regulations, and standards, the administration of take-back schemes, the extended producer responsibility of entities engaged in the production, conversion, and importation of products and packaging, and the establishment and the establishment and administration of materials recovery facilities. The Speaker, Part 4 of the bill, clauses 15 to 21, provides for the waste management functions of the Cabinet Secretary, accounting officers of the public entities, and county governments. It also provides for the establishment and management of materials recovery facilities and the duties of private sector in the entities. Speaker, Part 5 of the bill, clauses 22 to 23, provides for access to the information on waste management submitted and maintained by NEMA, and for public consultation and participation for the purposes of this particular bill, or for the purposes of the Act. The Speaker, Part 6 of the bill, clauses 24 to 25, provides for financial provisions, including the allocation of fees for county waste management facilities, incentives for the production and importation of sustainable waste management. Part 7 of the bill, clauses 26 to 29, provides for monitoring, compliance, and enforcement of the National Environment Management Authority, the role of the National Environment Complaints Committee in establishing the complaints and redress mechanisms for the purposes of the Act, and the establishment of partnership programs by the authority. Part 8, Speaker, of the bill, clauses 30 to 32, provides for general provisions, including the obligation for environment restoration, where waste management activities have taken place, dispute resolution mechanisms relating disputes under the Act, and the general penalty for offenses for which no specific penalty is provided for under the Act. Part 9 of the bill, this is clause 33, Mr. Speaker, provides for the power of the Cabinet Secretary to make regulations for the better carrying out of the provisions of the Act. Part 10 of the bill, clauses 34 to 35, provides for miscellaneous matters, including the integration of waste management into school curricula and for transitional matters. The first schedule of the bill provides for the conduct of business and affairs of the Council. And, Mr. Speaker, the second schedule of the bill provides for the procedures to be followed in public participation as specified in clause 23. Speaker, the bill does not contain any provisions limiting any fundamental rights or freedom. Clause 31 of the bill provides for the power of the Cabinet Secretary to make regulations in order to make it better to carry out the provisions of the Act. I therefore want to urge the members of the House, Mr. Speaker, to make contributions in this matter. Mr. Speaker, any one of us can tell you how waste is mismanaged rather than how it is managed, because we know about how it is mismanaged, Mr. Speaker. In our counties, particularly, Mr. Speaker, NEMA has to come clean. NEMA has to become stronger, Mr. Speaker, so that when anybody does mismanage waste or does not manage waste properly or profitably, or does not, Mr. Speaker, maintain a clean environment, we have to have somebody to take responsibility, Mr. Speaker. The bill then now narrows that to the National Environment Management Authority, Mr. Speaker, NEMA. And then there's a complaints committee, Mr. Speaker, which means we can now complain to somebody about when our environment is not kept clean. When for example, a town or a municipality fails to collect waste or fails to manage that waste and therefore spills into water resources, Mr. Speaker, or into people's livelihood. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious matter. It is a matter that requires that we actually apply technology, Mr. Speaker. It's a matter that requires that we have taken best practices from the other countries that have successfully managed their waste, Mr. Speaker, and that is basically no rocket science. Mr. Speaker, we know countries that have managed their waste properly, or organizations are there. Mr. Speaker, this will take out the mismanagement that exists in our counties, Speaker. It also compels us, Speaker, to invest in waste management. It will force even, Mr. Speaker, for us to get the necessary tools, the necessary equipment, necessary facilities and institutions, Mr. Speaker, to be able to manage waste in a very civilized way, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are many places where you'll find that waste is managed in a place and in a situation in our counties, Mr. Speaker, where you wonder exactly if NEMA was involved in that matter, if they actually gave permission or the licenses for this particular way of managing that waste or mismanaging that waste. So this bill, Mr. Speaker, which I want to say is a very important bill, and I'm going to ask that members, as we look at this, speak about the waste management situation. We know that our counties have not been successful in managing many things, including our health situations. But now this one, Mr. Speaker, is a result, or can be the result, of those sicknesses and those illnesses that then lend us to going to hospitals which have no medicines, and so it becomes a vicious cycle of some misfortune, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not want to spend so much time on it. I just want to urge honorable members to consider and pass this important bill in order to ensure that the country benefits from sustainable waste management systems, which will offer many opportunities and benefits to both the economy, the society, and the environment. Mr. Speaker, believe it or not, there's a lot of benefits, there's a lot of business, there is a lot of extra production of power, for example, from our waste, Mr. Speaker. It can be turned into green power, Mr. Speaker, a source of power. So there are many other things that can come out. There are many benefits, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that members will pass this bill. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do want to move and ask Senator Fatuma Dulo to second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to second this bill, and I'll be very brief. Mr. Speaker, this is really a very important piece of legislation, and I think it is long overdue. And I will only comment on a few areas that I really feel that this bill is very important, especially on section 2 of the bill, and it has really captured the gist of the legislation. Mr. Speaker, waste management activity, clearly it highlights the importation and exportation of waste as prescribed by regulation, regression of waste including any activity or process that is likely to result in generation of the waste, accumulation and storage of the waste, collection and handling of waste, which is very important, reduction, reusing, recycling, and recovery of the waste. There are so many countries, Mr. Speaker, sir, that have really made a lot of money from this particular kind of management, recycling of the waste, and also recovery of the same. Trading in waste, which is also very critical. And I think once we establish, or maybe we pass this legislation, this will be able to help the country to generate revenue from this particular process. Transportation of waste, and I think there are ways of actually transporting waste, because sometimes you will see, especially I live in Lavington, you will see that a whole truck full of waste, sometimes smelling for almost an hour. It's being transported along the road, which is actually not very good because we are polluting the air. So I think if there are proper ways of actually transporting the waste is very important. Transfer of waste, which is also very important. Treatment of waste, and then disposal of the same waste. Mr. Speaker, I think we've been having a lot of challenges as far as waste management in our counties are concerned, especially in market areas, in hospitals, around our homes. And if we have proper legislation in place on how waste is managed in this country, then we'll live as a healthy country. And Mr. Speaker, section 3 of the bill highlights the object of this act. And one of them is promote sustainable waste management. We must be able to have proper way of sustaining management because we see actually in most of our counties, there are no strategies or ways of promoting sustainable waste management in our counties, despite actually counties allocating budgetary allocation for those municipalities. Improve health of Kenyans by ensuring clean and healthy environment. This is also another factor that we really need to take very seriously. Over the years, Mr. Speaker, there are people who are doing exploration in northern Kenya, and you will find that people who come and try, they leave a lot of waste behind, which is actually dangerous to the health of the communities living in those areas. And if we have proper legislation like this one, it will be able actually to help the communities to manage the health and also live to ensure that the areas are left clean and healthy. Reduce air, land, fresh water, and marine pollution. That is also very critical. Promote and ensure the effective delivery of waste services, which is also very critical, Mr. Speaker. Create enabling an environment for employment in the green economy in waste management, recycling, and recovery. Recovery, as I've said earlier, if we do that, of course, there will be employment created within our counties. And Mr. Speaker, many of our youths who are unemployed, they will be able to get employment in this country. Establish an environmentally sound infrastructure and system for sustainable waste management. I believe apart maybe from the cities, big cities, in most of our counties we don't have infrastructures that can be used in actually sustaining the management of waste. Promote circular economy practices from green growth. And I think this is also very critical. Mainstream resources efficiency principles in sustainable consumption and production practices. And I think this can be actually borrowed from the countries that have already established. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, once we pass this particular legislation, it will be quite useful to our counties, and also we'll have revenue generated, as I've said earlier, and also our counties and the population will be able to live in a healthy environment. On one aspect in this particular legislation, Mr. Speaker, I've seen where the bill actually mentions that the counties will come up with a legislation 2 months after passing this particular legislation. And I think that is long overdue, because if we have passed or maybe this legislation is enacted, we should be able to allow the counties actually enact their legislations immediately so that we can be able to deal with waste management in our counties. And again, enforcement is also very critical, because there are very many people who actually violate on the right of individuals and citizens as far as waste management is concerned. I have a neighbor in the area where I live. Every day at 4 o'clock he's burning waste behind my fence. And I've really reported severally to NEMA, but nobody is taking action. So which is a very serious matter. So, and I think we need to enforce legislations that manage sustainability of waste management. And I think with this, I'll second, and I thank Majority Leader for having moved this bill. I thank you.
I now propose the question, which is that the Sustainable Waste Management Bill, National Assembly Bills number 2022 of 2021, be read a second time. Senator Cherargei Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. From the onset, I want just to comment by saying this Sustainable Waste Management Bill is long overdue, Mr. Speaker, sir. You remember one of the biggest challenges, Mr. Speaker, sir, especially to the growth of our cities and towns and township and centers, has been how to manage waste management and the issue of solid waste management across our counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, the biggest challenge, even here in Nairobi City County, being the capital city, for over the years, has been how to manage waste. What is the legal framework? How do you ensure? Because that is the biggest challenge. And you know, if waste is not managed properly, Mr. Speaker, it can become hazardous to public health. Alternatively, Mr. Speaker, if we do not also manage again, it can be a source of earnings, a source of employment. Because if you look at Dandora dam site, Mr. Speaker, it continues to be a source of many livelihoods of the young men and women around Dandora in this city, Mr. Speaker. When you go similarly, any center, be it where I come from in Nandi County, be it in Mombasa City County, be it Kisumu County, even West Pokot in Kapenguria, the biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, has been how to harness, manage, and make the issues of waste become. And you know, Mr. Speaker, under Article 43, every Kenyan should have an access of clean water, good environment, and therefore we cannot talk about environmental protection if we cannot manage waste, Mr. Speaker. We cannot talk about environmental sustainability if we cannot manage issues of waste. So I really want to thank Majority Leader, Senator Samuel Bokisho, for bringing this bill as part of the legacy of Senate, Mr. Speaker. I know it's a bill that has been generated by the National Assembly, but it deserves our attention. Mr. Speaker, even when you come to my small center called Mosoria Township, county government, it has been hard for county government to collect waste. They are using a tractor once in a while, but when you walk around Mosoria Township, Mr. Speaker, you find a lot of litter, wastage, solid waste, sewerage issues. It continues to be a threat. Same thing to Bungoma town, Mr. Speaker, where I've been on several occasions, both on official and unofficial duties, Mr. Speaker. For example, a town like Kapsabet, Mr. Speaker, the same challenge of managing waste. When you go around showground areas, sorry, Mr. Speaker, you get a lot of waste management being thrown about. You go to Nandils, especially Nandils market, Mr. Speaker, where our women, Mama Mboga, the hustlers, try to make a living. There is a problem there. The wastage has not been managed. You go to, I had an opportunity visiting, Mr. Speaker, with Senator Irungu Kangata, the incoming governor of Muranga. I had an opportunity of taking him to Kapsabet Town Market, CBD Market. Mr. Speaker, it is sad. And I sympathize and empathize the people, both women, Mama Mboga, in Kapsabet Town Market, who continue to languish despite paying for the services in Kapsabet Market, Mr. Speaker. I also sympathize with the customers who go up there, Mr. Speaker, because you have to dodge wastage that has been left, Mr. Speaker, apart from unavailability of toilets and availability of electricity. There is a lot of wastage, solid waste that has been left in Kapsabet Town Market, Mr. Speaker. And the county government find it not fit to try and do anything. That is the sad reality. Despite of fighting a lot of billions of shillings to go to county government of Nandi, Mr. Speaker. Even any city, be it Kaptumo, be it Kobuchoy, be it Serem, be it Kabiyet, be it Chepterwai, be it Ndala Township, anywhere including Olesos, Imaki, Nandils Town itself, Maraba Township, Chemase, all those areas that have small trading centers, Mr. Speaker, continue to have a biggest challenge. And as we said in Article 43, Mr. Speaker, that every Kenyan has a right to clean environment. And I think, Mr. Speaker, in Economic and Social Council, somebody should go to court, because when you go to most of our counties, when solid is not managed properly, and there is an access to clean health, Mr. Speaker, then it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. So I really want to say this bill is long overdue. There are many issues, Mr. Speaker. There is the issue of clause 28 on the National Environment Complaints Committee shall establish a complaints and redress mechanism for purposes of this act. Mr. Speaker, I can use an example. When Kisumu County government wanted to relocate I don't know the name of that dam site, and it brought a lot of issues, Mr. Speaker, because there was no structured way of engaging. Because, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about access to justice, when we talk about this is one way of decongesting our courts, because if we already have this, Mr. Speaker, it will solve a lot of issues that would have gone to environment and land court matters, Mr. Speaker. Because, for example, when Kisumu County government wanted to relocate, and I'm told that is the reason the first governor of Kisumu was not able to be re-elected back, because of the issue of pull and push of relocating the dam site within Kisumu City, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, having this complaints committee will allow access, efficient access, Mr. Speaker, even at national level. I know there are Kenyans who are not comfortable with Dandora dam site here in the city. They would want it to be relocated. Other cities, we are planning, Mr. Speaker, what we call smart cities. We are planning what we call smart cities, export processing zone. We are planning Konsa City. We are planning even another smart city in Eldoret, I think near Cheplas K, Mr. Speaker. All these cities need a proper legal framework, and one of the ways to ensure that some of these disputes, Mr. Speaker, are resolved is this, the National Environment Complaints Committee. And it is important, Mr. Speaker. Number two, Mr. Speaker, in consultation, I think clause 29, is that since county governments, Mr. Speaker, under Urbans and Cities Act, the role of county governments, Mr. Speaker, should not be downplayed. And I think part of the functions that have been given to the county governments, Mr. Speaker, is issues of wastage, issues of waste management, and many other issues. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think it is very important that the county governments play a critical role, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've seen an opportunity where county governments, Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, this is close, Mr. Speaker, the issue of monitoring and evaluation authority. I think this is very straightforward, Mr. Speaker. I have seen in a particular section, Mr. Speaker, I can't trace it in these clauses, where county governments are allowed to do partnership. Mr. Speaker, in other countries, I think I was watching other documentary in Al Jazeera, where other countries are selling excess of wastage to other countries. I can't remember the two countries that were doing that. Mr. Speaker, this waste can be turned into income generating through the partnership. Because there is a way we can manage waste, we can recycle. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy nowadays when you go to supermarkets, you buy a product, you see at the top of the bottle, recycle me. Mr. Speaker, if we put in place recycle management within environmental issues of wastage management, Mr. Speaker, it will be very important. The counties need to partnership. They need to see how they can transform that waste management, Mr. Speaker. Even, for example, in us who are farmers, sometimes we turn, for example, animal waste through biogas system and generate gas, cooking gas. We generate electricity. Mr. Speaker, from where I come from, because we are farmers, we have cows, we have any type of livestock, Mr. Speaker, and therefore it is very important, and I think the majority leader, that is very important where counties can do partnership with other organizations and agencies, Mr. Speaker. And we have classic of countries that have done this and succeeded. The waste should not choke our cities like the way I've seen. I don't want to cast aspersion to a country like, I see the problem that we have in India, Mr. Speaker, for example. The biggest problem that India faces today is the issues of waste management, Mr. Speaker. I think on the issue of access to information, that's a basic right, and I think under Article 34 and 35, the issue of public participation, Mr. Speaker, has been done before. You remember, I think there was a case of CEC or finance in Kiambu, a classic case, where the issue of public participation was found to be critical. And I think the collapse and the red herring, Mr. Speaker, of BBI were issue of lack or inadequate public participation. So the standards of in Supreme Court and other, and these agencies, including people who have aspirations to be governors, they must be aware that public participation continues to be an ingredient in public management affairs, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope as our brothers and sisters who are campaigning to be governors and busy campaigning in the village now, they must be aware that even if you become governor, you are not a demigod to decide. You must go back to the people. Power belongs to the people, and that is what even our constitution tries to envisage. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of, finally, because I think this is very important, it's direct. Nowadays, Mr. Speaker, when you go to dispose your waste, I am happy most of the agencies and institutions try to segregate. They say put disposables here, put maybe you are eating a banana and maybe you are taking a soda. There should be separation, segregation of waste so that it becomes easy even to collect them, Mr. Speaker. And I think that is very important, has been envisaged by Clause 20, Mr. Speaker, and ensuring that there is a place that you should go, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, I think private sector continues to play a critical role. Most of the industries, be it cottage and other industries, Mr. Speaker, private sector continues to be one of the biggest market player in terms of industries, and therefore it means there is a lot of wastage, Mr. Speaker. What should be done by the private sector? In as much as we say private sector should involve itself to CSR, they must also ensure that CSR is in place, Mr. Speaker, even in terms of solid waste management. The industries, and I am happy that Clause 19 has provided for waste quantities and management methods, Mr. Speaker. Because in this country we have been having a challenge with most of the industries. I don't want to name them. I saw in a story in one of the leading television networks an issue via, I think, Machakos or Mombasa Road, where they were, the neighbors were complaining that that industry should be closed. Where I come from, we have been facing similar challenges, Mr. Speaker. I think private sector continues to be a critical partner who will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the waste management is part of issues of CSR that we are talking about. I saw in, I think, Mombasa City County, where Senator Faki Mohammed comes from, I think they relocated also. I don't know whether now that place has turned into, I think, Kibarani or something like that by the name. When you are traveling within, I saw they planted trees. I don't know now whether that place is beautiful or not. But I think, the next governor, okay, I think Senator Faki confirms that that has been done. But I hope the next governor, because I can see, Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of heat in Mombasa. I'm told, although Mombasa is very hot, but I'm just saying it's hot politically. Because I have seen Governor Sonko has relocated to Mombasa, Abdul Swamati is there, and many others. What was our Senator Sarai? Yes, Sarai. I'm told Mombasa is hot, and he's hot politically. And I know that maybe the reason Senator Faki did not run for governor is because it was too hot, and the place is too hot, Mr. Speaker. So that relocation program that was done by Mombasa City County, Mr. Speaker, is very important. And I hope in terms of planning of our cities like Mombasa, like Nairobi, like Eldoret, like Kakamega, like Kisumu, like Bungoma, and many other towns, Mr. Speaker, should be done in a more appropriate and orderly manner. Mr. Speaker, I think the functions of county government in Clause 17 can never be emphasized. They have a specific role, and I think governors should know. I see governors, when it comes to buying drugs from KEMSA, they are quick. Buying vehicles, they are quick. Going to trips abroad and exotic places in the world, they are quick. But when it comes, Mr. Speaker, of solid waste management, issues of fixing roads, issues of bursary, and issues of paying casuals. For example, I'm told in Bungoma, casuals have gone forever without payment, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, you know, governors should know that part of their work is issues of solid waste management. It looks like governors will only go where they think it is comfortable. I know managing solid waste is not, it does not have a nice smell. But the point we are trying to make is governors should realize that part of making our cities attractive. Because, Mr. Speaker, when you go to places like Kisii, and also it's coming to Nandi, there is what we call land fragmentation. And it will reach a point where we'll need to ensure in the next decade that most Kenyans must live in cities. How can we ensure Kenyans come to live in towns? Encourage urban, rural-urban migration to cities if our cities do not have a proper waste management plan as provided by this law. So this law, Mr. Speaker, is futuristic and will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that it is put in place and hope the county governments will comply with. I know I want to request county assemblies as the primary oversight to ensure also they can use this as a permanent law and transplant and modify to fit each and every county. Because how you manage waste in Nairobi City County and how you manage in other places is very important, Mr. Speaker. Finally, I hope, Mr. Speaker, I know there are many divisions that are coming up. I hope our colleagues will find time. Let this one be our legacy. Because as President Uhuru Kenyatta retires, we want him to sign this into law, Mr. Speaker, so that you can, people who are going to become governors or city managers or urban planners or physical planners, Mr. Speaker, will ensure, and even somebody, Mr. Speaker, who will want to be urban planner or city planner, Mr. Speaker, should be attending, when they attend the interviews, not political interviews that we are seeing, and I've seen Brother Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka had indicated he's not going to interview, but when they attend serious interviews, Mr. Speaker,
Senator
they should be conversant.
Can you conclude? You have very few minutes to say some important points. Now you are wasting them on political statements that you can say in barazas.
But, Mr. Speaker, I was just using an example that hope the physical and urban planners, when they attend interviews, not interviews that we are seeing, but when they attend interviews of serious magnitude, they should be conversant with this law, Mr. Speaker. It is not in good, I'm not saying it in bad faith, it is good to attend interviews, including political interviews, Mr. Speaker. I thank you and I support.
Senator Mwenyehaji, you are next.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuweza kuchangia mswada huu wa kuangalia ama kudhibiti kisawasawa uchafu katika maeneo yetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza Mheshimiwa Spika, niruhusu nikupe kongole kwa kuweza kutuwezesha kuwa na kanuni za kudumu kwa lugha ya Kiswahili. Sikupata fursa kwa Mheshimiwa Spika kukupongeza kwa sababu nilikuwa niko safari, lakini nakupongeza na naomba kwamba sasa kwa vile tuna kanuni za kudumu kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, tungependa pia misada, ripoti na vile vile taarifa ziweze kuchapishwa kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, kwa sababu hiyo itasaidia pakubwa kuweza watu wanaofuatilia mijadala katika bunge kuzisoma ripoti zetu kwa njia ya rahisi, na vile vile pia itasaidia pakubwa kukuza lugha ya Kiswahili. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati tulipokuwa tunaanzisha hizi kanuni, lugha ya Kiswahili pia ilikuwa imeratibiwa kwa lugha inayotumika pakubwa ulimwenguni. Kwa hivyo swala hili ambalo tulilifanya wakati ule ilikuwa linasaidia pakubwa na inasaidia pia kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba lugha ya Kiswahili inaendelea kukua na kutumika ulimwenguni. Mheshimiwa Spika, mswada huu wa usimamizi wa uchafu mahali kwingi umekuja kwa wakati mwafaka, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu tumeona kwamba kaunti zetu nyingi zinashindana ama zinapata shida na malambukizi ya takataka kila maeneo. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona pia kuna kaunti zingine kama vile kaunti ya Kisumu wameweza kudhibiti takataka zao kwa njia ambayo inaleta usafi katika mji wao, na vile vile pia hata kaunti ya Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeweza kufanya hivyo. Ukiona Kibarani, zamani ulikuwa ukipita Kibarani lazima ulikuwa ufunge pua, lakini sasa ukipita Kibarani unaona kwamba ni kusafi, kumepandwa miti, kumewekwa vinyago vya wanyama ambapo watu Jumapili wanakwenda kujivinjari, na vile vile pia watu wengi wanazuru sehemu ile ili kuona kwamba yale mabadiliko ambayo yamefanyika ni makubwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, la ambalo kusikitisha ni kuwa jaa lingine la taka limeweza kupelekwa katika VOK katika mtaa wa makazi katika eneo la Nyali, na jaa hili Mheshimiwa Spika limeweza kukua linakakua mpaka sasa imekuwa ni shida kuweza kulidhibiti. Japokuwa jaa kubwa la Mombasa liko sehemu ya Mwakirunge, lakini hili ambalo liko katika eneo la VOK Mheshimiwa limekuwa ni udhia kwa wakazi wengi wa Nyali na wakazi wengi wa sehemu hiyo. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba serikali ya kaunti ya Mombasa iweze kuhakikisha kwamba jaa lile limeondolewa pia, kwa sababu hatuwezi kuwa na jaa katikati ya makazi ya watu. Mheshimiwa Spika, usafi ni ustaarabu. Usafi ni ustaarabu. Tunaweza kuleta sheria kama hii, lakini ikiwa sisi wenyewe hatuna ustaarabu wa kuwa wasafi ama ustaarabu wa kuweza kudhibiti takataka zetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, ina maana kwamba hata tukiwa na sheria kama hii haitasaidia, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa sababu tumeona Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wengi, kwa mfano wengine wanaendesha magari barabarani na wakifika wamekunywa maji, chupa anairusha kwenye kioo, inaanguka kwenye barabara, Mheshimiwa Spika. Hiyo hata ukamwekea sheria mtu kama wewe, Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa ni kama kupigia mbuzi gita, kwa sababu hawezi yeye mwenyewe, hana tabia ya ustaarabu. Kwa hivyo kama huna tabia ya ustaarabu, Mheshimiwa Spika, hata ukaekewa sheria Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa sheria ile haina faida yoyote. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, sheria hii itasaidia pakubwa Mheshimiwa Spika kuweza kudhibiti malimbukizi ya takataka katika kaunti zetu. Na vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, pia nimeona kwamba sheria hii pia itadhibiti kuagizwa kutoka nchi za nje takataka ama yale mabaki ya vitu vichafu kama vile vitu vya sumu. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukikumbuka hapo nyuma eneo la Mikindani, kijiji cha Wino Uhuru, wakazi walikwenda mahakamani, Mheshimiwa Spika, kudai ridhaa kwa sababu walikuwa wameletewa mabaki ya lead, ya madini ya lead, ambayo madini yale yameweza kuwapa sumu, yalikuwa ni ya sumu na yakaathiri afya zao, na serikali ikaombwa ilipe bilioni 3 mwaka uliopita, lakini mpaka sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa hizo hazijalipwa. Japokuwa athari zile Mheshimiwa zimepungua, lakini watu wa eneo la Wino Uhuru mjini Mombasa, kaunti ya Mombasa, wanazidi kupata shida Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu ya pesa zile zingewasaidia kugharamia matibabu na mambo kama hayo. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo lingine ambalo pia limenifurahisha ni kuwa hii sheria ikishapitishwa katika bunge hili, serikali za kaunti pia zitalazimika kupitisha sheria ili kudhibiti takataka katika maeneo yao yanayotumika, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mara nyingi Mheshimiwa Spika, taka hizi zikibebwa zinakwenda kutupwa maeneo fulani ambayo inakuwa ni hasara, Mheshimiwa Spika. Umeokota takataka katikati ya mji, unakwenda kuzitupa katika sehemu fulani ambapo zinachomwa, na zikichomwa Mheshimiwa Spika, zinasaidia pia kuharibu mazingira, kwa sababu ule uchafu ukiingia katika hewa una deplete ama unaharibu ile ambayo inaitwa kwa Kiingereza ozone layer. Na hiyo ndio inasababisha pia kubadilika kwa hali ya anga, tabia nchi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu tumeona kwamba hili limekuwa tatizo kubwa katika ulimwengu, mabadiliko ya hali ya hewa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na hii inasababishwa pia kwa upande mkubwa kwa masuala haya ya kuchoma takataka ovyo ovyo, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, haya masuala ya kuchoma takataka pia yanatakana yasimamishwe ili tuone kwamba tunakaa katika mazingira safi. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia matumizi ya takataka hizi kuweza kuleta bidhaa tofauti tofauti. Kwa mfano Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna nchi ambazo zinapata nguvu za umeme kutokana na takataka ama kutokana na vitu kama hivi ambavyo vinatupwa na vinatengenezwa kuwa takataka, na kunatengenezwa kuwa umeme na bidhaa zingine za matumizi ya nyumbani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tumeona kuna sehemu zingine Mheshimiwa Spika, bidhaa hizi takataka hizi zinafanywa kuwa vitu tofauti tofauti. Kwa mfano makaa ya kupikia vile vile vinatumika kuwa mawe ama matofali ya kuweza kujenga, na zote hizi Mheshimiwa Spika zinaweza kufanyika iwapo kutakuwa na uwekezaji katika sekta hii ya takataka. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona kwamba wale wengi ambao wameweza tumia takataka kwa njia nzuri, tumeona kwamba wameweza kupata manufaa makubwa. Badala ya kuchukua takataka na kwenda kuzilimbukiza baadaye zinachomwa, itakuwa ni bora Mheshimiwa Spika, kaunti zetu ziweze kulazimishwa kuhakikisha kwamba hizi takataka zinatumika kwa njia ambayo itasaidia kuleta maendeleo na kuleta mazingira safi katika maeneo yanayohusika. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia nimeona katika sheria hii kuna nafasi ya kuweza kutatua mizozo kupitia kwa uwiano ama mazungumzo. Kiingereza wanasema dispute resolution section, ambao ni kifungu cha 33 cha sheria hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo itasaidia pakubwa kuweza kupunguza mizozo baina ya kaunti. Kwa mfano, hapa kulikuwa takataka za Nairobi zilikuwa zikatupwa Murang'a, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo mizozo kama hiyo haitaweza kufanyika iwapo itatumika sheria hii. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba sheria hii ni nzuri, na tumeona kaunti zetu nyingi zinatumia zile sheria miaka 10 sasa, baada ya kuwa na serikali za ugatuzi. Kaunti nyingi Mheshimiwa Spika zatumia zile bylaws ama sheria ambayo zilikuwa zimepitishwa na zile manispaa za zamani ama county council za zamani kuweza kudhibiti mambo ya takataka kama haya ambayo yamezungumziwa na sheria hii. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, sheria hii itasaidia pakubwa kuweza kuendeleza usafi katika miji yetu Mheshimiwa Spika, kuweza kupata wawekezaji ambao wataweza kusaidia pakubwa kuleta maendeleo kwa kutumia vifaa ambavyo havitumiki tena Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa kumalizia Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kusema kwamba iwapo sheria hii itapitishwa Mheshimiwa Spika, hii itakuwa ni njia moja pia ya kukuza uwekezaji na kukuza nafasi za kazi katika maeneo yetu Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu pesa nyingi zinatumika kubeba takataka kwenda kuzitupa katika majaa, na majaa yale Mheshimiwa Spika hayasaidii chochote kwa kuweza kuleta maendeleo ama kuweza kuleta faida kwa jamii ambayo inahusika. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Asante Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me a chance to contribute to this very important bill. And from the onset, I want to say that this is a very, very important bill. It is a timely bill. It's one of the bills that I wish this House can pass before the House, before the next Senate. Mr. Speaker, a clean and a healthy environment is a constitutional right. In Part 2 and Article 42 of the Constitution, every citizen has a right to a clean environment. Mr. Speaker, but what we see in our county governments, there are no infrastructure, no systems that are put in place to ensure that our citizens are free from air pollution, are free from environmental hazards, and therefore this bill has come at the right time. When I look at the bill, Mr. Speaker, this bill has provided for a provision where the county government can improve its structures. It can also come up with policies. It can also come up with regulations. It can also come up with standards on how to improve the environment. This bill also has given responsibilities and roles to the Cabinet Secretary, and it has also given some roles to the county government in regards to making policies and regulations. This is important because right now, collection of garbage in our counties, transportation, landfills where they are dumped, water drainage systems are all filled, and we have no proper system to address these environmental matters. I therefore think that this bill, when it comes to place, will be able to address this. Of interest is also the provision that will enable county government to also do financial allocation and also give incentives to companies and institutions that are doing garbage collection and also management of waste. Another interesting situation in this bill, other provisions of this bill, is creating a monitoring and compliance and enforcement law in the bill, where now the county government, the national institutions like NEMA that is having an authority in terms of waste management is also going to have monitoring and compliance infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I think this bill is very timely, and I want to urge this House to pass this bill. This bill will go a long way in helping us to put our urban areas infrastructure in place for waste management. It will assist us to be able to assist our county government to enforce waste collection and waste management. And therefore, I support this bill.
Thank you so much, Senator Mary. Senator Gertrude Musuruve online.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to support this bill. And there is a place where there was a lot of garbage, but the garbage has since been cleaned, and it is a tourist site, Honorable Speaker. But this action from Mombasa County, Honorable Speaker, is not self-sustaining because the garbage was transferred to another area. But when it comes, we talk of waste management, it means that that waste should be translated into usable value, Honorable Speaker. Because even from waste, Honorable Speaker, we can get energy that will be cheap. Like I've seen in some parts of, in some counties, I've seen people, individuals, translating cow dung into energy that they're using, and this becomes cost effective, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that I support this bill, and this is a bill that should be embraced by county executives, county governments. They should ensure they identify the resources, the waste that are there, and then even this waste, Honorable Speaker, need to be categorized into, sections, like if they're bottles, if it is cow dung, if it, paper bags and all that, Honorable Speaker, so that whatever waste that is being managed is managed in a way in which it is going to be productive, Honorable Speaker. We have seen instances when waste has been has polluted the seas, the water, and therefore even affecting the lives in the water like fish. But if there's a way in which waste can be managed, then they will not affect even the lives of the species in the sea, Honorable Speaker. And even apart from that, we also have air pollution. Most of the time, sometimes you find that when you go to a place where there's a heap of, a heap of waste, you find that the air is polluted. And apart from air being polluted, Honorable Speaker, we even find that the place is infested with the rats. And these rats find their way into human beings' houses. And as a result of that, we find that people end up getting diseases. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that when it comes to this bill, if it is enforced, then it will have also an effect on climate protection, Honorable Speaker. So we have to look for ways and technologies that are actually in place that can help in recycling. And Honorable Speaker, I am sure that there are many countries in this world that are now, that have embraced technology, that have come up with technologies that can be used in recycling waste, Honorable Speaker. And this is the direction that Kenya should take. This is the direction that we should take, Honorable Speaker. And apart from that, Honorable Speaker, I want to see this being a very big win-win-win for us as a country, because it will end up creating employment. We'll have people who are going for their waste, they'll get employment. We'll have even, the brain person, they'll have employment. We'll have the people who have hands-on, they'll have employment and all that, Honorable Speaker. This is a very huge industry that I'm foreseeing, and this is an industry that can actually be a big employer all the way from university graduates, even from both skilled and semi-skilled people, Honorable Speaker. So I support this bill, and I hope that this bill is going to see end of light at the end of the tunnel. I hope it will also be accepted too by the President. Although I'm just wondering, Honorable Speaker, because I know there are so many bills that have not been accepted too. There are so many also that are even lying somewhere in the National Assembly. And Honorable Speaker, just to comment, when bills come from the National Assembly, we've always fast-tracked, the business that come before us with regards to bills, and eventually we have sent back the bills to them in good time. But it is unfortunate that we have some bills in the National Assembly that have really taken long. And some of the bills like the KSL and some of the bills that have come up with you, Honorable Speaker, you are aware of it, are still in the National Assembly. So I hope also that the executive, I hope that the business community management is going to fast track and also communicate with sister houses to ensure that these bills, see light at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker. I support this bill, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Musuruve. Senator Ali Abdullah Ibrahim, Senator of Wajir, to be followed by the Senator online, Senator Agnes Mudama. Please hold.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are good at bringing about very good legislations and bills and this which will never be implemented. This is the problem of this country. Every day, very new bills, every day, very new laws, and nobody cares about it. What is the use of talking about waste management? People are saying this is the right time, we already had a lot of laws which could be used to take care of this. As Senator Fakia said, we have a very bad habit as a country and as people. We don't even care where we dispose our waste. The normal one, forget about the other serious ones and the ones which are severe. The normal waste from our households, we just throw them anywhere. They rot in those dustbins. Those were the few dustbins which are in town. Look at what was happening in this country for a very long time, the Dandora dump site. You see the chokoras, the ones who are picking things there, trying to recycle. How do they look? When you look at these companies, which are supposed to be collecting normal waste from households, the workers, how do they look? The vehicles, how does it look? When you make it look like this is not even a proper business, when really those guys who are doing these businesses are minting millions from the locals and from the people they collect the waste from. Just the simple, normal waste from households. The guys who are working in those vehicles are dirty. The vehicles are dirty. When they pass next to you, you feel like fainting. When you go to other places, at least those ones who collect the waste have their, overall clothes. They are well protected. You don't care about our people. We don't care about anything. And we are talking about laws, which will not be helping anybody. So I feel, as far as I am concerned, this is not the right approach. We have to change attitude first, try and teach ourselves that we have to clean our environment ourselves. In some areas you see when you enter a house, the house is very clean, but outside the house, it's dirty everywhere. So we have that problem. So I don't think whether these laws will help anything. Everywhere you go is an eyesore. The people who are collecting the garbage are dirty themselves. So these things will really not help. Look at our waters, our waterways. The few small streams you have in Nairobi, they are all stinking, they are all dirty. We have created something called NEMA, a mammoth organization, which I don't know what it does. Why do you go creating another authority called Waste Management Authority when NEMA, with all the resources and all what has been done, could not function all this long? So I think this is just duplication as far as I'm concerned. It might not be helpful. It's a waste of money. People want to create positions for themselves so that when some other possibly, my take might be that there are issues which are coming up. There are some international organizations who possibly want to dump things here. And an organization is being created so that people want to go and just, do some funny things. As far as I am concerned, Madam Speaker, this bill is of no consequence. We have had several bills, as I've said. The NEMA Act authority is there. NEMA can handle this. So I don't see why we want to create another organization with so many, other people who will be employed when many of our already bodies and boards are dying because of lack of finances and lack of what to do. We have, as I said, our waterways, our streams here are dirty. You go to the river, you see what has happened to it. And we cannot even manage that. If NEMA cannot even manage that, what is the use of waste disposal? When you come to organic waste can be used, if people are educated proper, they can be used to create energy. We need a lot of energy in this country. Biogas. It's not only the dump, the waste from the animal waste, but even the other normal organic waste can be used to generate that. And that is a simple technology which can be used in households, which can be used anything. The national government failed to perform in this aspect for a very long time, for the last 50, 60 years. Now, county governments, which are already suffering, which have no money, are being told, you will take over these things. County government will do this. County government will do this. Money should follow functions. But when there is no money which is given to the county government, and the little that they were getting, they were already mismanaging, we want to create other enormous organizations who will just create more employment and cause more harm to the counties. Counties have failed to even collect the small garbages which are there, which are within the county headquarters. Forget about the other sub-counties. You go to every county, everywhere in this country, everywhere there's unnecessary garbage, which is mostly organic, and some few plastics, which can be recycled. Now, the one of, the e-waste is becoming a great hazard to this country as well. Nothing is being done. So what is the use of creating all these things when NEMA has failed? So this is one question which I want to ask. And there are many other organizations and ministries which were supposed to have handled this. They have failed. How will county government perform? With no money, resources are not being released. National Assembly is bringing this bill here when they are curtailing the money which is supposed to go to county government. This financial year, there's no increment. And you know what we have undergone before. It is the same as the last county allocation of, the county allocation of revenue bill is the same. Nothing has changed from 370 to 370. And we want to add more. According to this bill, it's stated that once it's passed and signed by the president, within 1 month, it should come, or within 1 year, it should come into practice. These are just, write-ups which are not helpful as far as I'm concerned. So whether my colleagues say this is the right time for this bill, this is very encouraging. As far as I am concerned, it is nothing. This is just papers, and papers which are being brought about, and nothing happens, no implementation. And when there's no implementation, what is the use of passing unnecessary laws which will not be helpful to this country, Madam Speaker? according to what the county government is supposed to do, and number 9 here, Article 9, county government shall be responsible for implementing the devolved functions of waste management, establishing the financial operational conditions for the effective performance of these functions. Where will that money come from? The county government shall ensure that county waste management legislation is in conformity with this act, and within a period of 1 year of the coming into operation of this act. So all these things are just imaginations. County government shall ensure that disposal of waste generated within the county is done within the counties that. They cannot even do that. County councils are better sometimes when you look at some of these issues, Madam Speaker. So as far as I am concerned, I don't agree with this bill. It is not helpful. It's a waste of time because there are no resources. County government has been given all the job to do everything, but nothing. The national government wants just to create a board which they will employ the people and they will not be given funds and nothing will happen. So, Madam Speaker, I oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Agnes Mudama online.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to make my contribution to this waste management bill, which is, to me, overdue because, Madam Speaker, we need this law like yesterday because when you go to most of our counties, especially the county where I come from, the county of Machakos, all the towns are rotten with garbages which are not collected. Surely, Madam Speaker, the senator who has just gone out of, of speaking, he says that the county government has no money, but they collect revenue from the women and the men who do business, mama mbogas in the towns. But they don't collect the garbages. I think the same money can also be utilized for at least carry the garbages. And also the county governments as workers, and most of them has trucks which can do the garbage collection. Madam Speaker, as I speak, yesterday we had a prayer meeting in Machakos town, and the place was everywhere flies were there, bad smell. And not only Machakos town, all towns. And Madam Speaker, as I go around doing my campaigns, most of the small towns in our counties have not even some essential, facilities like toilets. Madam Speaker, and those markets has been there for many years, not even sheds for the mama mbogas to use when they are selling. And according to Article 43, every Kenyan has a right to clean water and clean environment, and even a place where they can do business, a clean place where they can do business. Madam Speaker, I think this law will help because I've seen some companies which are doing recycling of plastics and making even bricks to build houses. If we can implement this kind of a project in our country, I think it can help even giving most of our citizens jobs, which are lacking. Most of our young people have no jobs. So if we do the recycling of these plastics and make the blocks, we can even build, cheap houses with them, not buying the stones that we build with. Madam Speaker, I think this bill is very timely, and it should be implemented, but the government should also make sure that the counties get funds. But some of the counties, even if they get funds, they misuse by going on trips, just recurrent expenses, and not even doing any projects that benefit our citizens. Madam Speaker, I thank you and I thank Majority Leader for this bill and the National Assembly for this bill. I pray that this bill will be implemented even before the term of this Senate is over and it can be signed and it can go into work. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support this bill.
Thank you, Senator Kavindu. Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohammed Faki, Mombasa. Oh, he spoke already? Thank you. We are not cleaned our page. Senator Olekina Ledama, Senator of Narok.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time, but congratulations. I saw a very good picture somewhere. Madam Speaker, I don't know whether to support this bill or not, because I've gone through this bill, and I know the majority leader moved this bill, but he moved it, and it's not his bill. This bill belongs to the National Assembly. Madam Speaker, I share the same sentiments with my colleague, Senator Abdullahi Ali, because although waste management is a very lucrative business, sometimes I think it's a bit ridiculous that in Parliament we sit down, develop legislation, and most of the legislation which is developed here is aimed at one thing. Before, every legislation which was sponsored by the government was aimed at one thing, creating an authority. Madam Speaker, if I was to support this bill, the first thing which I think is actually, I don't know whether I should use that word, is it parliamentary or not? The word stupid? It's unparliamentary. But if you look at from section 6 of, I didn't move it, I requested. Madam Speaker, if you look at this bill, you know, whoever thought about this bill had a good idea, because you say waste management is not being done properly, but this should be our own responsibility as citizens of this country to have a better country to live in. If you look at this bill, Madam Speaker, and I hope you can take some minute and read, because I've just skimmed through it, and one of the things that really just baffles me is if you read from section 6, it says, there shall be a council to be known as the Waste Management Council, which shall be established by a cabinet secretary within 1 year of the coming into operations of this act. It proceeds and says, the council shall comprise of a chairperson appointed by the president. Jesus Christ. Why are we now getting into the issue of reducing the work of a president to go and appoint a chairperson to be able to help us, citizens of this beautiful country we call Kenya, manage waste? It should be a responsibility for every individual. So, Madam Speaker, if I was to support this bill from section 6 all the way to section what? Section 9 must be deleted. Because this is just an avenue of creating jobs, to create an authority, a council, have powerful people, to draw a salary, have allowances, have people travel, because that's what you do, Madam Speaker. Travel abroad, get a huge per diem, is a chairperson appointed by the president, go and say, I'm going to benchmark to see how other countries manage their waste. Yet, we have not even been able to manage the waste in this country. Why on earth should we start creating an authority, giving the cabinet secretary? Is it that the cabinet secretary does not have work to do? We have NEMA, the National Environmental and Management, what is it called? National Management Environmental Authority. What is the job? If you go to NEMA, they'll tell you certain functions have been devolved. What we need to do, Madam Speaker, because another section here, which I'll try to make sure that people see. If you go to another ridiculous provision, section 18, it says, every county government shall prepare and submit to the county assembly for approval an integrated county waste management plan once every 5 years. They're now putting it into their CIDP. Madam Speaker, the county government should develop a policy. We should not have the cabinet secretary sitting down and say, we are now going to develop a policy on how we are going to manage waste, and we will also devolve this policy, so that the county government and the assemblies will develop a policy that will be put in their CIDP for 5 years. This is ridiculous. Madam Speaker, if we are serious as legislators and we want to help this country deal with the issue of waste management, the first thing we need to do is that we must reduce it to our own homes. In our own household, Madam Speaker, every so often. I'll give you a good example of these temporary homes we live in Nairobi. You know, there is all these trucks that comes and collect waste. What we do there is that we bundle all the waste in one basket. The first thing we want to do, and NEMA has to do this, because NEMA is another body where people just collect money for the sake of it. They don't do nothing. What NEMA should be doing now is to say, okay, number one, Senator Pogisio, the majority leader in your house, you need to have 3 bins. Bin number 1 is all the organic waste, all the food, all the vegetables. Bin number 2 is all the recyclable materials, paper, plastic, actually paper. And then bin number 3 is any other hazardous waste, or bottles and stuff like that which you can be able to recycle. We need, first of all, to define what can be recycled and what can also be used to generate revenue. Madam Speaker, if you go to Italy, and I did that about, to study the issue of waste management myself, about 10 years ago, you will see companies that make billions of shillings. Even in the US, where I lived for 20 years, waste management companies make billions of shillings. Why? They create dumps where they go and recycle that food that you waste. They also take that and they turn that into organic manure. Yeah, Madam Speaker, even when we are constructing the roads, you will find the people who have been given the tender to construct the road, they'll go cut the trees. When they cut the trees, of course, they expose us to all these environmental hazardous things. They bring drought. And then they just sell that for firewood. And then the leaves, they are just let to rot right there. They are swept, sometimes they are put in, and they are dumped in Dandora. To give you an example of Nairobi. In Nakuru, Madam Speaker, there's a very good friend of mine called Zakayo. Zakayo owns a timber yard. When I came back from Italy, I went to his timber yard. And in his timber yard, because he's been doing, it's a mill, so he's been milling timber for a very long time. The waste is almost as high as this parliament. And he just sits there. When I got there, I said, Jesus, these are billions of shillings. With a simple equipment, you turn that, you create compost, you use it to grow trees. You use it for your flower gardens. You know, we have buildings now coming up where people are planting trees. I have one of those. You cannot put soil there. You use compost. So I think what we need to do first, before we even think of passing a law like this, is we need to ask ourselves, are we ready to have a clean environment? If we are, what is the work of NEMA? NEMA then should be engaging county governments in ensuring that they clean their cities first. Killing our cities, dustbins. You know, if you go to our markets are dustbins. And there's no county government, Madam Speaker, which wants to improve on the markets, because the person who is cleaning there wants to make some little money, but they're still filthy. So I don't think I can support such a bill, which all that it aims to do, I'm sorry, Majority Leader, you're just the messenger, so I'll spare you that a little bit. But I'll be honest to say, this bill just ought to create authority, to give the cabinet secretary more jobs for nothing, In fact, the first thing we should do is that NEMA should develop regulations. They should go sit down with the county governments and say, let us look at your spatial plan. Where are we getting income? When we are looking at getting income, let us use technology to ensure that Senator Pogisio, who owns this building, has got the responsibility to ensure that in that building, waste management is priority number one. He must have 3 bins. If he does not have 3 bins, no license to him. That is how we develop clean environments. So it will be Senator Pogisio's responsibility to ensure that every person who occupies that building as a tenant is responsible. And that responsibility will also be able to spread even in our homes. The only thing that NEMA did, which I think we should say congratulations to them, or the Ministry of Environment, is to ban plastics. Because our counties were littered with plastic waste all across. At least now they are still there because they still find their panya routes to come into the country. But at least it's better than before. There's no way a legislation is going to come and help clean up our cities when we are all dirty and filthy. The first thing that we need to do is to recognize that we do not need a law to be able to manage our waste. The second thing we need to do is to ensure that we can now use that waste to make money. If my good friend Zakayo, Mzee Zakayo in Nakuru, would just bring a small machine, he would be exporting fertilizer. He would be exporting compost, just like it's exported all over. Madam Speaker, if you go to Game Supermarket now, or you go to this big, or even Carrefour, you will find compost, which has been imported from other countries. It's as if we don't have waste in this country. So, Madam Speaker, I don't think I can support this. I'm sorry, the person who drafted it had a good mind because he wants to see a clean environment, but I think cleanness starts with you. Now, how do we deal with this matter, Madam Speaker? Number one, every county government must ensure that before you issue a license to any either building or anybody, that person must come up with a policy or rather a plan on how they are going to manage that waste. Because everybody pays a license, and in that license there is a waste management fee. But that money is just collected and it's just, mixed with all the other resources. And even those county governments do not even clean those cities. Madam Speaker, I was in West Pokot recently, and I would actually say that the small towns that we went to campaign were cleaner because people do not have a lot. But here in Nairobi, because we accumulate so much, we go shopping a lot, our people only go to the market once a week to buy their food. So maybe you'll find a small plastic bag and everything. I think we should learn from our rural areas, which they are clean. So that now where we are living in these urban areas, we ensure that NEMA does its job, not another authority being created by a cabinet secretary, just a way of siphoning public funds. NEMA ought to look back and say, what is it that we can do to be able to perform our functions? This bill, Madam Speaker, is one of the worst bills I've ever seen in this parliament. And I hope that we can all become of age such that when we come and we introduce legislations in this parliament, we do away with this issue or this nonsense of creating authorities. In fact, this one is called a Waste Management Council. You give it such a beautiful name, and, and you also now give the president the responsibility of appointing the chairperson of this council. And maybe even if you go to that chairperson's home, he or she will not even know how to manage the waste. So in summary, Madam Speaker, it behooves us, instead of coming up with legislations day in, day out, to ensure that we live in an environment which is clean, an environment which respects itself. Hypothetically, Madam Speaker, if we were to pass this legislation, and we've not even dealt with the issue of dumping in this country, how are we going to solve our problems? Today, Madam Speaker, if KRA would listen, or if the Ministry of Treasury would also pay attention, there's absolutely no reason as to why we should reduce ourselves to be driving V8s, which are all mitumbas, just because we've raised the taxes so much. In other countries which are doing well, you know, Kenyans who work in those countries drive new vehicles which are clean to the environment, which will help the environment, and at very little amount of money. But today, Madam Speaker, you go buy a vehicle which you would actually buy it used in America or in Japan for 300,000 Kenya shillings, but by the time it lands here, and remember, they are dumping. You'll end up paying 1.6 million shillings. Yet you talk about corruption. Where do you think corruption will ever end? Where do you think that person will get that 1 million on top to be able to pay? You drive that vehicle for about 2 months, it starts developing problems, polluting the environment. I wish I would have seen a provision in this bill that proposes 100% total ban in the importation of used vehicles, but instead lower the taxes of all brand new vehicles. But when the Cabinet Secretary, Munya, I believe, attempted to introduce certain provisions of reducing the number of years that an old vehicle can be allowed to be imported into this country, we politicians were up in arms, including unscrupulous businessmen who dwell in that business. Until he said, I'm not bothered. That if we were serious enough, that would be the first step that we'll take to make sure that we don't pollute this environment. That is issue number one. Number two, all these businesses, the Ministry of Health, through public health officers, should actually up their game. Go in, talk to the people, and say, hey, you know what? You cannot continue dumping or rather pouring toxic materials into the river because it affects people downstream. There are so many hotels built next to the river. But those hotels end up maybe doing their waste, human waste and everything, into the river. That's why Nairobi River is so filthy, although the late Michuki attempted to really do something to fix it. I always say the Ministry of Health, through the public officers, can do so much good for this country in improving sanitation. The Ministry of Environment, which I think has failed in performing its duties, if they were to up their game a little bit and care about the environment and not policy or boardroom meetings all the time, then we could be able to have a better country to live in. Number three, as I summarize, this issue of requiring county assemblies in this bill to come up with a plan for 5 years ought not to be reduced into legislation. It should be something where, at least when they are coming up with their budget and they are looking at their spatial plan to see where they are making their resources from, it is something which they should consider and say, when we are charging this license fee, X amount should go into the environment. And when it goes into environment, each county government should develop a very strong Department of Public Works, which deal with the issue of cleanness in those cities. It behooves us, Madam Speaker, as I finalize, to begin being clean ourselves. We start recycling all the waste in our homes. And then slowly by slowly, because we are the legislators, we work with the county assemblies to ensure that when they are passing their budget, there is a clear dump site which is known. And in that dump site, instead of now increasing politics, because ask Senator Mora here, Senator Mora could have a very good idea of making money, creating employment for Dandora dams. But the moment he set his foot there, I'm telling you, 1 million people will come up in arms and say, what are you doing? because people make money, but they want to continue making money in a very dirty environment. Dandora would create 1 million jobs. Dandora would be able to put money into this economy. But now, it can't. Every town, every city, Narrow County being one of them, Madam Speaker, you will see that the dump site is right next to a river. And there are people living downstream. So we are not only cleaning the sewage and dumping the water into the river, but we are also dumping all toxic materials into that river. So, Madam Speaker, I will not support this bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Masitsa Naomi Chionga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me an opportunity to contribute on this bill. Madam Speaker, I'll start by saying that the author of this bill, or rather the originator of this bill, had a good mind of probably sustaining or working upon the waste management. However, the bill itself, the articles that are in this bill, if you read most of them, and I can quote, Madam Speaker, from, I don't know where I saw it, but I can check very fast. Article, is it 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? They really contradict the whole issue on this bill. Especially, my colleagues have touched on the council, the authority, and all other, the authorities that are supposed to provide analytical report, the county government running the whole episode of collection and other function of waste management, the council creating jobs in the county government. Already, Madam Speaker, Kenya government is constrained in terms of budget. Even if we want to create jobs, let us look for a law that can create jobs, but be sustainable and be of beneficial to Kenyans. Madam Speaker, in Kenyan Constitution 2010, under Article 42, guarantees the right to clean and healthy environment, which I totally agree. And it includes the right to environment and protect the future generation. Madam Speaker, it's important that when we get such a bills, we scrutinize them carefully, because there are some acts that are put in that actually contradict the whole thing, and then loses the whole essence of a bill being discussed here and passed, when actually it's going to erode the gain that we have made. Madam Speaker, sustainable waste management has been a challenge across all levels of the government, be it at the county government, but they are saying that most of the responsibilities goes to it through the county government, and the authority that they are mentioning here through the council that they want the PS or the CS to come up with. And looking at it, this piece of legislation, it is very important for us to make checks that such clauses be deleted completely, because they are just adding some more corruption avenues to the county government, which is already complaining about the budget, complaining about constraints on the workload that the county government already has. And we do not even have enough money in the government to run this government, even though we are adding and we are getting the budgets. But I don't think if this bill is really for the budget that already the county government are constrained with. Madam Speaker, I want also to say that increased level of production in agriculture and other sectors of the economy is usually accompanied by the result and waste that is not sustainable, or sustainable at the level whereby result of good health hazards within our environment is managed. And we are really having a big problem when it comes to most of the estates that are coming up in the country, or they are mushrooming estates that are coming up in the government, and even in our county government. And NEMA is already there. And I can say totally that NEMA has failed us, including me who is speaking here. When it comes to waste management, when it comes to air pollution, where I stay, we are always complaining about NEMA, which has policies that it cannot sustain, it cannot review, it cannot even list. When you go to NEMA even right now with a complaint of waste management or coming to assess the pollution, maybe in a certain estate, they do not have an answer, but rather they want you to convince them. Why should we have authorities? Why should we have councils in addition to NEMA that we need to be convincing when actually their work is to work and act and sustain the waste management that is supposed to be their duty? Madam Speaker, I want to say that we have had cases where counties judge businesses and business operators for waste management without delivering the services. And that is there. They're just making money, booming businesses through the officers who are there. But we do not have, nobody can show you where we get, where this county government take the money that they collect on this. Instead, the county government, most of the county government come up with their own businesses, collect they become the owners of the businesses, and they collect money on behalf of the government or the county government, whereas the business is theirs. So why should we continue pumping money into these county governments or creating jobs to the county government just to continue with the corruption cases that we are trying to control and talk about in this assembly here or in this Senate here? Madam Speaker, with the advent of regional economic blocks, it is noteworthy that the bill provides the inter-county cooperation on waste management, which is a good thing. But again, let us look at it closely, that how are these economic blocks working even currently with the current status that they are in? So I just want to say that although the authorities are additional to what we have already had with NEMA, but I totally disagree that this bill, with what is the content that it has, the setup that it has, with additional jobs on the county government, we are just going to create more corruption, we are going to waste funds, and I think this bill, at my level, I feel we should fail it should go back, and we should not vote for it, because we are just going to waste resources, we are going to open avenues for corruption and nepotism when it comes to employment. Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is my contribution.
Thank you.
I don't support.
Thank you, Senator Mwaura Isaac.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's quite interesting to see that we are discussing a bill about waste management. To begin with, I think it's good to accept that there is a problem of waste management in this country. And if you go to other jurisdictions, you see very clean cities. But if you want to know where somebody has come from, you just need to look at the dust on themselves, in their shoes, or even the vehicles that they are coming out of. And that's normal. I mean, if you just look at the vehicles coming from Kiambu, you can tell they've just come from Mashambani. It is anathema for this country to have clean places. Yet when we go abroad, we don't even remember when we last, brushed our shoes. I don't know. Just recently, I was coming from the airport, and when you just land in Kenya, you are taken by the litter around the green spaces in between the expressway, highway, the Mombasa Road and all of that, and the bypasses. And we seem to be quite accustomed to that. And waste management is secondary. But we know for sure that this is a lot of money. If it is well, anchored, there is very good technology to do so across the world. And remember, even seeing in other jurisdictions, how waste management would, just one person who is a driver and a truck would go around, homesteads and picking all the dirt, and from bins, and just organized, bins. This is for paper. This is for whatever organic waste and all of that. I think this is a topic that we need to discuss. Kenya was amongst the first countries to actually ban the use of single-use plastic papers, and it has made a lot of a difference, by the way. In fact, our country was more dirty when we had the single-use plastic around. It seems to have come back through the back door. I see them in the estates there. But largely, it being banned, it has reduced the waste that we see around. So I think the issue that I want to address, Madam Speaker, here is that, yes, there is agency in having a waste management bill, because then it needs to be regulated in terms of ensuring that then you define the parameters. So I disagree with my brother Ledama Olekina that this is one of the most useless bills. We have the powers as legislators to legislate on anything under the sun, as long as it is within the interest of the jurisdiction that is Kenya. So I think it's important that we debate it. But I also think this is a preserve of county governments, really. It's a bill concerning county. That is why it's found itself here. So these matters need to be legislated by county assemblers. They should be the ones who would be thinking of how best to manage waste. There are many good proposals. I think if it is even privatized, it has a higher rate of success. I have been approached, for example, personally, by people who would want, for example, to custom make waste management, factories in places like Kiambu, where I come from, and you find they are very good ideas. But then the challenge is, it becomes another money-minting exercise. People do not want to sit down and just agree that they have good leadership that then would follow through these plans. And I wonder whether really, Madam Speaker, this is a largely oratorical question. I wonder whether we actually, about 6 decades, by next year we'll be 6 decades since we got independence, whether we are heavily investing in good leadership that then would espouse such kind of ideas and see them through. Like you find progressive governors are unlikely to make it in these coming general elections because maybe they don't play to the gallery, they are not out there politicking all the time. I know, and I don't want to mention names, but I bemoan the fact that those people who are usually focused and dedicated are dismissed as being aloof and unreachable. I mean, all of us now are in the campaign mode, and I can see Mama Sigino, Senator Naomi Shionga, and I wish her well to become the women rep for Kakamega County. I know we are not in the same coalition, but as a good friend and a sister in Christ, I wish you well, that you may win that election. But you find that how many times can you receive people's phone calls? If you receive all phone calls that you get on your phone, then you will not be working. But that's a main complaint of constituents. They want you to receive all their calls and to answer to all their needs, and that would mean giving out handouts and such kind of things. So I have, from my own personal experience, I think we only need about 3 to 4 months of campaigning, and that is enough to produce the kind of leaders. But as long as we have robust laws that midwife such kind of leadership. So this bill, waste management, in spirit it is very good, but then it falls, when it is tested in terms of copy-pasting some kind of, mathematical formula, if I can call it that way, where the drafters have always been creating authorities and councils and agencies which have got a board, and this board is appointed by the appointing authority, in this case, in this new constitution, the president, or through the cabinet secretary, and those people do not really end up doing the work, because those appointments end up becoming political for many politicians or people who are politically correct. So they don't end up resolving the issue. And I had actually, Madam Speaker, in this parliament, I have proposed 9 new legislations. Today I saw an SMS asking us to come here for division. But you can see division is happening. You can see around. There is no way we are going to pass these laws because, I mean, we are short of quorum because everybody is trying to survive politically in one way or another. In fact, it has been documented that those who stay in this house when others are campaigning are unlikely to come back because they don't spend a lot of time looking for votes. But before we do sign a die, Madam Speaker, I really think we need to dissuade ourselves from this practice of creating too many semi-autonomous government agencies. Because what they do, Madam Speaker, is that they continue to siphon resources out of government. So it is important if then counties can create their own small agencies, and if it can also be a PPP kind of thing, where you actually partner, and then, because waste is money, it is financed by that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Remember sometimes back in one of the counties, I don't know that it was Meru, where a governor was accused of using 400 million shillings of buying dustbins. Certainly that's a lot of money. I wonder whether they were being put in people's homesteads, so that then you don't want to create a law that just creates a platform for, provides a platform for people to siphon out the much needed public monies in terms of development expenditure. And of course it will be recurrent because then you have to keep on recycling waste every other day. So I think this bill is good. It may not be very timely because I don't see it seeing light of day, to be very sincere. Looking at the time that is remaining, I think in exactly about a month or so from now, we would be calling off the 12th Parliament. So I don't see it advancing further. But it's a good idea. It can be carried over to the next parliament, majority leader, so that then it is fine-tuned. But we need to think on how we are going to recreate the model of making bills in this country, so that those bills are not just, copy-pasted. One of the bills that I was bringing to the House, out of my 9 bills, was a sunset bill. The sunset bill, the aim has been to put a definite timeline on how long a state agency must exist. And it has been documented that you only need about 20 years to resolve a problem. So that then you retire such bills. After 20 years, maybe after 10 years, such agencies can come for review, but only to see the progress made, so that then after 20 years you do away with those many agencies. There are about 247. And so this would be another extra one. And of course, it would be very popular if it was created, because if you are made the chairman of the Waste Management Council at the national level, then you can as well get kickbacks from all of the people who want to get licenses to go and do what they need to do. It's big business, it's big money. But that's not the idea we want to have. So in terms of progressive thinking, I think we need to relook at this bill and also ensure that we add value to it. That is why we, the Senate, are essentially a house of revision, so that then we don't just throw the baby with the bathwater. So otherwise, I think a lot has been canvassed, and I hope that then in the new format of the bill, it will not just be an overarching enabling legislation, but then you custom make, or rather you delegate the legislative power to the county assemblies, so that each one of them would get a bigger picture from the mother bill, but then they custom make it to suit their needs. Why? Because even a very good example was given just now on the floor of the House, that where counties don't have a lot of waste, maybe there's a limited development. So then you don't want to say the same for every other county. But it also means, Nakuru, just the other day, was to be a very clean city. Very, very clean. You would be happy to be Nakuru. But because of the exponential growth of Nakuru, as one of our, 5 cities, including Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, and now Nakuru, it has become very dirty. It has become very chaotic. It speaks, of course, waste management cannot be removed from city planning, physical planning. So again, that also is very, very important, because it's not just a question of this bottle of sanitizers that are all over here, but also in terms of stormwater. How does it go all the way? How does it clog our streets? How does it make it, because it's part of waste and all of the garbage that it carries with it. So I think it is a very holistic thing, but it needs to be structured in such a manner that we localize it to make it more, amenable to what will be, important in a certain, locality. So I think, Madam Speaker, with those many comments, I would want to say I support the bill, but with amendments. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, that was the last contribution, so I would now like to ask the mover to respond. Senator Pokisho.
Madam Speaker, I beg to reply. Madam Speaker, this has been a very interesting afternoon. The bill which we have been canvassing here is the Waste Management Bill. It's a National Assembly bill, Madam Speaker, and as I said before, passed by the National Assembly. But now here, this afternoon, Madam Speaker, has found a very robust debate in the Senate. Very robust, and I'd like to thank the members who have contributed. Some of them are not very comfortable with it, a good number of them very comfortable, but there are definitely some work to be done on it. But Madam Speaker, I just want to ask that the members realize that this is very practical, applicable to your counties, applicable to our devolved units. It is the place where we suffer for lack of proper management of our waste. And so, I agree with Senator Mwaura, who basically says, yes, it's a good bill, it's very progressive, but we might have to put it in a different format. And that's, of course, for every bill that we have, Madam Speaker, we have a stage at which we can bring in those amendments. And I'd like to encourage that we make a bill better, definitely by enhancing it through amendments. And so I want to say that because, Madam Speaker, that of the circumstance of the day, and members being away, I would like, Madam Speaker, to move and ask that, pursuant to Standing Order 61(3), the putting of the question be put to, the question be put on another day. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I beg to reply.
Thank you, Leader of Majority. The vote is therefore deferred to a later date. The division will be at a later date. Honorable Senators, I would like to now go back to order number 8 and defer orders number 8 to order number 24 for the convenience of the House. Further, Honorable Senators, order number 26 and 27 were supposed to be moved by Senator Judith Pareno, who had informed us that tomorrow will be more convenient for her. So orders 26 and 24 and 26 and 27 are deferred for that reason. Honorable Senators, the next two are Committee of the Whole, orders 28 and 29. The two are therefore also deferred for the convenience of the House. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 11th May 2022, at 2:30 p.m.